Welcome to our Gerontology Research Group online meeting. Today is Saturday, November 27th, 2021, a couple days after Thanksgiving, and we do have some things to be thankful for in this relentless charge to solve the problem of biological aging. And much thanks to Miles Jacobs for coordinating this and setting some great agenda topics. I'm now just going to turn it over to Miles to talk, if he wants to talk about number one of the two things that are top on my mind these days, resetting the epigenome to a more youthful state, or cellular reprogramming, and specifically the reprogramming process of the OSK Yamanaka factors. Miles, would you like to talk to us about that?
Thank you very much, Johnny. Last time I mentioned the seventh day. Like I said, it sounds like almost like a religious process, but on the seventh day after conception, something from the Bible, but on the seventh day after conception, your epigenome is reset to a zero state. It doesn't happen at conception. You have to wait for 7 days, and then the embryo is made new. It's made young again. That was the paper we looked at last time. Then this week, I just wanted to say something else, which Calico has discovered. Calico being Google's health spin-out. They've discovered that the OSK reprogramming, it follows a particular process, and that the process fundamentally is that the cells de-differentiate. They go back to, they lose some of their identity. They don't go back to day zero. They do still remain committed to a certain lineage, and because they then redifferentiate to their original state. So that's the process that happens when you apply these OSK factors for partial reprogramming. I just want to share my screen for the paper, the abstract for the paper, which is recording this from Calico. Let me just see. I've got, goodness, where is that?
So Miles, that's prior to that at that point you have the 3 germ layers formed, right?
Yes, it's not. It's because OSK excludes MYC, c-MYC. So you don't form an iPSC. You don't form an induced pluripotent stem cell. You go, the lineage goes back, but the cells retain the information to redifferentiate properly with OSK.
Miles, I have a question on that. I read that in the news too, so I was familiar with this de-differentiation and redifferentiation. But my question is, and was my thought was at that time, how the hell do they know where they came from? How do they know, record where is the memory of this state that they were differentiated to if they are now de-differentiated?
Paul, I think I suspect we know, but it's not been discussed a lot. The process of differentiation has to do with the terra RNAs from the telomeres on the basically the various stem cells. As the cells differentiate, as they divide, those telomeres shorten. And then we have the production of the terra RNAs, which go and sit. The terra RNAs go and sit on the promoters of the Hox complex, the differentiation complex. But they're going to be different lengths. The terra RNAs will be different lengths sitting on the Hox complex. So if they have the same origin, they will be covering different promoters in different cell lines, depending on how many times that cell line has divided. That is the way that, obviously, if they are covering and they're initiating methylation on different sections of the DNA, depending on how many times they're divided, that will then control the ultimate identity, because obviously if you start your your ribosomes at different points. You're going to produce different proteins in that cell, and you're going to produce effectively a different identity for that cell. So what the OSK is doing, it appears to be removing, I think, the methylation, but not the tera-RNAs. So the cell can redifferentiate using the methylation. In other words, the tera-RNAs which determine the identity is still there. That's not being removed by OSK. I think MYC removes the tera-RNAs, which then completely obliterates the cell lines, the epithelial or mesenchymal or whatever, all the different types of cells. That is, I think, is what's happening.
Are you effectively saying then all of the information about the dedifferentiation state, the state of specificity to produce certain cell types only and be liver or kidneys or whatever that is, that all that information is related to the telomere lengths?
Yes.
Wow.
Well,
that should be easy. But that should be easy. Sorry, that should be easy to prove.
No, but there are lots of papers that show that differentiation has to do with the tera-RNAs. You can read, there's lots of papers now. The tera-RNAs go and sit on the
I'm sorry, I'm missing a word there. The something RNAs, what? The telomere?
No, not telomerase. Tera-RNAs.
Tela-RNAs.
Tera, T-E-R-R-A.
Oh, what are the tera-RNAs?
They come from the telomeres. They produce from the telomeres in the stem cells as the stem cells divide. And those tera-RNAs, they're like a ruler. They're like a measuring tape. They have different lengths, and where they end, there they activate the promoters. So with different lengths in different cell lines, you're going to have different sections of the Hox complex being activated. So you'll have different biochemicals produced, which determines the identity of the cell. That's how differentiation seems to work. So with the OSK factors, you're rolling back some of the differentiation, but you're not, I don't believe you are loosening the tera-RNAs. I think they are remaining in place. And the de-differentiation is simply the methylation which is being done with the polycomb proteins.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to have to look up what these tera-RNAs are, and because I don't understand that at all right now. So thanks for the information, and I'll do some more research on it.
Right.
Yeah, so do I, and I'd like to know the etymology. Does terra refers to the earth? Is that a clue to the meaning of what these tera-RNAs are? Is ground state or something?
Look, they come from obviously the telomeres. So that is, I think, where the name comes from. But you must understand the process of differentiation in order to understand the process of aging. Because differentiation is epigenetic marks being put on, and aging is epigenetic marks being lost. So you can't understand aging, but you must understand differentiation. And differentiation is via the tera-RNAs, which come from the telomeres. They're different lengths of RNAs. It's about the polycomb and the polycomb proteins which sit on the Hox genes which are for differentiation.
That's news to me also. Are you saying that aging, the methylation that relates to aging is strictly marks being lost, not being put on? I thought it was both ways.
Yeah, no, both ways. But I'm saying let me put it this way: it's a loss of the integrity of the epigenetic regulation, the control, the epigenetic marks. It's the loss of that regulation.
Yes, I understand that. I mean, it's like you grow hairs in your ear where there shouldn't be because those cells get changed. Yeah, correct. I understand that.
Correct.
But it's both plus and minus of methylation marks. It's a change. It's a change in the most healthy profile of ethylation marks.
No, absolutely. Johnny gave us a paper.
You cannot simplify.
Sorry. Johnny gave us a paper where, in terms of the Jumanji gene,
Just
controls the methylation of the my goodness, not nucleosomes, the histones, that controls the methylation of the histones. And increasing methylation of the histones is what causes aging in that case. Those people believe that the simplest thing to understand is the loss of the too much methylation of the histones. Yes. Can everybody see the paper? Can you see the paper? Okay, I'll put the paper there. I'm not obviously not going to read through it. It'll delay the meeting. But this is the first paper we have from Calico.
accept this.
You've got the link. I sent you the link. You can have a look, and it just basically says that the OSK factors, which are being used now everywhere for reversing aging in laboratories, they are causing the cells to revert to some de-differentiation, and then they redifferentiate. I'll take questions if anybody has questions. I'm very happy. I find this is very key. These are fundamental things we have to understand if we to understand the aging process.
Yeah, well, a big question we should all be asking is, what are the next steps? How are we going to translate this new information into solutions so we can stay young and healthy as long as we want?
Johnny, what is interesting is the OSK factors, OSKM, they actually relate to pluripotency, totipotency, multipotency. In other words, the different, some cells are totipotent and others are multipotent and some are pluripotent. It depends how many of those OSK factors they have lost. In the case of the full OSKM, they've been reduced to pluripotent. So they've used all four factors. If you use, I think, KLF will determine, for example, totipotency, and then SOX will determine multipotency. So it's interesting that differentiation is linked to the OSKM factors, and you can program de-differentiation. What you're doing with OSK is you are programming de-differentiation. You are resetting what the body did, the embryo did on the 7th day when it started to differentiate. So that was, I think that's obviously OSK. We are doing OSK with gene therapy, Johnny. We are doing it with gene therapy. So this leads us in how we must design the gene therapy cassette. I want to talk later about when we get to a nucleate, but how we design the gene therapy cassette to do the age reversal. This informs how we must design the gene therapy, the actual genetic sequence that we're sending in to do the reprogramming, because we're reprogramming the differentiation.
Well, it looks to me, you can read the abstract, or you can try to read it while the meeting's going on. And
it's too long. It's too long. I think it's too long.
I don't mean you. I mean, each of us could read the abstract, but it seems like what it's saying is that the last sentence, our results suggest that transient pluripotent reprogramming poses a neoplastic risk, but that restoration of youthful gene expression can be achieved with alternative strategies. Now, I don't know at this point what the alternative strategies are, but that gets back to Johnny's question of, well, where's the therapy? Where's the beef?
Okay, at the moment, we're doing mice with OSK in laboratories. We're using OSK to do the reprogramming. I understand that, for myself, I think it's the best known method. And we have to expand that into general therapy. We have to take it further. We're doing whole body mice with OSK.
Well, let me jump in a second. An offshore, in one of my circles of associates, an offshore clinic is in the offing to legally and ethically test new upcoming therapies that would be, more difficult to get done here in the US. So any of you in the meeting today who are so inclined to know about that or would participate in some way, just contact me directly.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a connection between this reprogramming and the removal of sentient cells from the body. We know that normal cells turn into sentient or zombie cells as we age. Is there a connection here?
We with sentient cells, we've got a behavior of the program. So they've gone into, in a way, they've gone into almost like genetic instructions which cause them to freeze, almost like your screen freezing in a computer. Now,
Right.
you could either you could actually program them to continue the program. For example, for myself, I don't see much difference between senescent cells and cancer cells. Cancer cells are also frozen in the youthful state, which is why they divide so much and then consume the resources. So you can send it an instruction to, theoretically, you can send it an instruction to make the sentient, the senescent cell work properly to restart the program. But the easiest way is just to eliminate the cell. And that's what the senolytics do. They don't try to reprogram the cell, they just kill it. And
Yes.
then have it replaced with normal cells, yes. So that's the difference. We could, if we are very careful, we could do the reprogramming, starting with OSK, but probably other factors as well. We could reprogram those senescent cells to continue, same with the cancer cells. But the shortcut we are doing currently is just to kill them, because that's quicker and easier.
Thank you.
I have another point about this, and that is, if the memory of this state of the cells, the de-differentiated state that is healthy and beneficial and life promoting, is required and so on, you certainly don't want to disturb it. Now, if it is in the telomeres, if it relates to the lengths of the telomeres of all the different chromosomes and the things that have telomeres, anyway, then you don't want to do a very aggressive telomere lengthening therapy or anything like that. It seems to me any major therapy or attempt to elongate your telomeres, which has been one of the thoughts for some time, keep your telomeres in good shape and so on, would be negative for this whole thing.
Paul, you must distinguish between germline telomeres and somatic telomeres. Stem cell telomeres and normal somatic cells, which are not stem cells anymore. When you are doing differentiation, we're talking of the stem cells only, and then it is set for that group of somatic cells. You are right, one shouldn't really mess too much with the telomeres. But the shortening of the telomeres during differentiation is occurring with the stem cells, and that determines the identity of the different cell lines. I agree with you. So in somatic cells, what happens then? Let's say at differentiation, the somatic cell has 15 base pairs on the telomere. During aging, it will lose a few, not because of differentiation, but simply because of attrition. I mean, aging itself, it's losing some sections of the telomere. That you can replace because you're trying to keep it at its differentiated state, which was that 15 telomere, 15 base pair length. You follow? So there's that difference between the somatic cells and the stem cells.
Well, that's news to me. I thought telomere lengths were only lost during splitting. I thought it was only splitting that caused the telomere.
No, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm referring to, the loss of the base pairs and the telomeres. And I'm just saying that you must focus upon the difference between the stem cell telomeres and the somatic telomeres.
Yes, I can understand that, certainly,
right,
that there's a differentiation between them. And you're saying this gene therapy with the the Yamanaka factors is only works, or is the purpose of it is to do something to stem cells?
Let me put it this way. Your OSK is being applied currently to differentiation and redifferentiation. So we are talking of something which is going towards something that looks like a stem cell in a way, but it's a partial reprogramming. I'm trying to say that we're not dealing with somatic cells. We are we are changing the differentiation. So your somatic cells which are there will be losing some identity, but then they will revert to what they were before. So it's actually, in a way, I'm not sure if I can say this, but in a way you're dealing with both. But I think we need to take this offline for a longer discussion. But you are talking about somatic cells which are already differentiated, which will have to be de-differentiated and then redifferentiated to fulfill their function.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Does anybody have an opinion about the accuracy, precision, and reproducibility of the currently available telomere length assays? And if so, which one do you think is the best?
I don't work there. Johnny, maybe?
Well, yeah, I've done telomeres, life length, both of them. I was kind of amazed. They told me it was surprisingly that the two of them returned about the same number, which was about 4 years older than my chronological age. So I don't like them. I don't like things that tell me what I don't want to hear. But I did recently get a high recommendation and took the SpectraCell test. And I guess, for your consideration, but in my estimation, that's the best one. And oh, by the way, it told me I was something like 15 years or something younger than my chron age. So that was about 9 months ago. And after I complete the 1 year Cavinson peptide course, I will be repeating that. So, I'll give you a complete report along with a couple of kinds of DNA methylation and the usual other lab tests and other kinds of testing that I do.
I suspect there's some bias there in your liking and unliking.
Oh, hell yes. I told you, full disclosure. I like things that tell me what I want to hear.
Me too.
Don't we all? But in my humble opinion, I guess SpectraCell, but you do your own comparison.
Can we, Johnny, but we can move off that point, or is there more?
Oh, I guess we can move on to your number 2. I do want to have some discussion though about Liz Parrish's paper, which I think I have. Well, I have the link, and so let's save some time for that. In my humble estimation, the two top things are, epigenetic reprogramming and gene therapies. And although they're some distance off before we will be able to practically apply or afford them, I think they will be the most groundbreaking therapies. So, but Miles, I'll turn it back to you. You can move on to number 2 in the agenda that you set.
Maybe you should do Liz Parrish first, because my next point is more general health about the pomegranate juice. Maybe first do Liz. Why don't you first do Liz, Johnny, and then we can do the next point.
Okay, well, I'll show the screen. I sent a message about this to GRG. Let me pull up the paper first. Yeah, there it is. Liz alerted me to this and suggested that I forward it to our group. But I first, when I read through it, I've been really, really busy these days, so I did not dissect the thing. But I noticed that it said that there were improvements in biological age. So I asked her how that was measured exactly. And I, with the holiday and emails getting lost in spam, I didn't yet get a reply. So I suggested that in the email that I did eventually send to our group, that we discuss how the biological age was, I forget how she put it here, but that it was reduced. So did anyone read this and see how the, aside from the, benefits and telomeres and that sort of thing, how biological age was reduced?
Wait, you're going too fast.
Oh, okay. Are you reading the thing? I'm searching
Okay. Could you,
biomarker or biological age. I want to see what it was said.
Yeah, let's go back to the start.
Yeah.
That's
so when
right.
they say biological age was reduced, how did they get that
That
measurement? I
was
didn't
my
read this
question
paper yet.
exactly.
Ah.
So maybe as a group, if we can dig it out from this, I didn't thoroughly study it.
Hey, could you
I was
put that
hoping
link in
someone would have
the
read the
chat?
paper.
Could you put that link in the chat, Johnny? I could find it otherwise, but
Oh, yeah.
that'd be
And
appreciated.
it was in one of the emails, but here it goes in
Yeah.
chat.
I have.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, Robert asked the same thing.
Oh, yeah, so he did. Very good.
Bang.
Thank you.
Well, okay, maybe we should save this for later, but
Well, no, I think it's worth discussing. I think one thing
Well-
about it that has me curious is she's basically saying that she's doing a repair operation, and yet that repair operation fundamentally changed biological age. Is that what she's saying?
well, here I recall something about gene transfer, which is in, and I don't know, I guess that's the same as repair.
Can I just say, I see they're using adeno-associated virus
Yeah,
to deliver H30. That's a telomere associated protein, and clone those genes.
right.
So they're delivering those genes to the patients with dementia. I presume that the patients, I'm not going to have a detailed understanding of dementia, but I presume that helps with the dementia of the patients. And then also it lengthens the telomeres, because I mean, H30, I think, actually does lengthen telomere. It's a telomerase.
Oh,
That's what I
yeah.
think
Well,
it
let me give you a little background on the study. This is something by that Liz Parrish has a close relationship and with an organization, Integrated Health Systems. And I was communicating with Dave Kekich before, his tragic passing recently. And this was a study that was done in Mexico. And to qualify, it was, there was no charge to the subject participants. They had to have a diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's disease, one of those two or both. And this is the resulting paper that came about. So the main thing with this is that it's a safety test, but also they talk about improvements in the mental measurements in these Alzheimer's patients. So that's the main thrust of this, and a little background for you. But here I was intrigued with biological age was reduced. So that's one of the main reasons why I bring this up today.
But in the paper, how do they show the biological age as reduced? What is the methodology they've used?
Yes.
Have they done
My question exactly.
any particular clock, or have they just measured the telomere length and based on that they're making that assumption? I mean, that would be very important. But otherwise, AAV therapy, adenovirus therapy with Clotho giving such results and high safety itself is a very big thing. So it's a very interesting paper.
Johnny, go to the methods section. That's where it'll say.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, there's a little, and I'm sorry, was that Miles who was speaking? Or,
No, it was Akshay.
oh, Akshay. Hey, Akshay's in the
Yeah.
house.
Hey, hello.
Hi, hi. Hi, Walter.
Yeah, just some more, background on this. I mean, one of the components of the mission of the folks behind this is to solve the problem of biological aging. And you probably know Liz Parrish was patient zero in her in this type of therapy.
Yes.
And she showed some useful biomarkers and objective measures that showed reverses in some measurements of aging. And so I'll just suggest that their motivation behind this is the same of ours, the end result of longer, healthier life. But to have a clinical trial and to publish a paper, there are compelling disease conditions that we have to solve. And Paul Presti has just joined us. He's a very, very talented age management physician out of Florida. But as I was saying, their overall mission is to solve biological aging, but this particular study was for Alzheimer's and using gene therapy. So it's an entree to bigger, better things. So anyway, in the methodology system, I read through this first as well. I did not see exactly how biological age was measured. I do know in the SpectraCell, calling back to, I think it was Ira's question, the SpectraCell telomere, they do have a graph that implies biological age from that. So maybe it was something having to do to that. But you speed readers, have you read through this and managed to extract how they measured biological age?
It appears that they're using telomeres to measure biological age. That's what it appears.
Okay.
Because on page, oops, they don't have page numbers. Isn't that nice? Okay. Page 10. On page 10 at the bottom of the page, our telomere analysis before and after treatment demonstrated evidence of increased telomerase function. The median and short telomeres were measurably, next page, elongated. Reduced biological age was seen in 4 or 5 participants. I mean, so they're in the same paragraph. I don't see anything about epigenetic age or anything like that.
Okay.
I can just comment.
It would be interesting. No, I said it would be interesting to check the epigenetic age as well. I mean, if telomeres have increased, maybe, there was some reversal in it should be, if those 5 patients also had their blood checked, I mean, DNA for biological clocks, it would be very interesting.
Yes.
Yes.
I think the main thing here is that they've been able to deliver HTERT, which is part of telomerase. So that would elongate the telomeres. That's the main idea for the gene therapy, which appears to be successful, which is very impressive. And then the lengthening telomeres seems to be the way that they've been measuring the reversal of biological age. I don't think there's a general marker method that they've used. They just looked at the lengthening of the telomeres. But the point is that the Clotho and HTERT genes went in successfully with the gene therapy, which is impressive.
I agree totally. I think it's a very, very interesting paper and the trial, because in humans, first of all, it's done, and Alzheimer's, there's nothing that has so far worked. And as a gene therapy, so there are lots of interesting elements to it. And Clotho, all of us have been talking about Clotho, and this actually shows that, Clotho gives this kind of significant benefits. So a lot of interesting aspects in the paper, for sure.
Bless you. Miles, you're
Here's an idea.
so Miles, I'll turn it back to you if you have anything to say or would like to move on to the next topic. I'll just say that, yes, I agree with Akshay that DNA methylation is one of the cornerstones of the kinds of tests that, I mean, I'm not going to dictate what someone else should do, but certainly what I would do in any kind of study, or whether it's N equals 1, N equals U, N equals me, age management program. But I just want to, remind us one thing they did right here is they evaluated the function in some sort of mental performance test, I think it was. And I'll just suggest that we always have to remember that lab tests are wonderful. All these biological age calculations are wonderful. And but also other kinds of tests include cognitive tests. Two of my favorites are the trail making bee and the human benchmark tests. Also, especially physiological type tests, everything from, the tried and true grip strength all the way down to various kinds of exercise stamina tests. I have my own that I developed on I ought to take everyone for a tour sometime to my home gym in the garage. I calculated that having that out there would save me like 40 to 50 hours drive time back and forth to the gym a year. So that's kind of a big deal for me. And I have it, everything that I really need to get a good workout. But the exercise stamina, evaluating high intensity interval training and how many bursts I can do on the elliptical machine, but also 6-minute walk test is very good for anyone who's tried to walk as fast, and I mean as fast as you can for just any length of time. I find like 1 minute and I'm pretty much done in. So I don't know how they do that. I've never done it. I have a bum foot, so I kind of have to watch it. But also how long you can stand on one leg is telling, both in terms of balance and leg strength. So just the end result we seek. And of course, eventually we'll be able to measure our own lifespan, or let's hope we won't be able to, until we don't care anymore, if there ever is such a time. So I just felt a need to always keep our mind on the end result we seek, which is function for a long, long time. So Miles, I'm going to stop my little speech here. Turn it back to you and stop sharing the screen. The link to it is in the chat. This is the study we were talking about. Take it, Miles.
Thank you, Johnny. I just want to go to the next paper, which is I was very much surprised by it, but it's a Proceedings of the National Association. It's a PNAS paper about pomegranate juice, which apparently have about 3 times the antioxidant effect of red wine. So I found it very significant. I don't know what people think, if I've chosen the wrong thing, if I've mistaken something important, but it's a PNAS paper. So I think it is significant. I'm just going to share the paper quickly. There we go. We have beneficial effects of pomegranate juice. I live in Cape Town, which is a Mediterranean area. So we have lots of pomegranate juice here. And it is, we get the cold pressed one, which costs.
Let's see the title, please.
Okay, let me just
shift it
there
down.
we go. Okay, so
Thank
there we
you.
go.
You
Can
could
see the
even
title?
copy the website into
The chat. Okay, let
chat.
me do that. Let me do that.
Yeah.
I might point out that I've been taking pomegranate juice for about 20 years at least, and the major benefit of the most beneficial pomegranate juices have all the pulp and seeds and some of the seed parts crushed into them as well. Okay, so it's important to get not just the juice that comes from the little flesh around the seeds.
I do that, Paul. That's what our cold press, they do that. They actually grind up, looks like, this is not clear juice. But the effects were interesting from the paper, basically reducing the plaque deposits. Now, okay, these were patients that were suffering from arterial disease. They were already compromised. So these were not healthy patients, because I think one needs to wait very long for them to show symptoms, but these were actual sick patients in that sense. And the two effects was the reduction in the plaques and the foam cells, which make the plaques, and also the reduction in the media of the average thickness of the wall, which included these plaques. So if I can go down, just to read the abstract, atherosclerosis is enhanced in arterial segments exposed to disturbed flow. Perturbed shear stress induces or increases the expression of oxidation-sensitive responsive genes in the endothelium. Evidence suggests that polyphenolic antioxidants, which are, like I said, 3 times higher in pomegranate juice than in red wine, contained in the juice derived from the pomegranate, can contribute to the reduction of oxidative stress and atherogenesis. In other words, the genesis of plaques. The aim of the present study was to evaluate the effects of intervention with pomegranate juice, PJ, on oxidation-sensitive genes and endothelial nitrous oxide synthase expression induced by high shear stress in vitro and in vivo. Basically, wanted to see what happened in terms of the response to shear stress, which causes the plaques. Apparently, the plaques are localized to areas in the circulation which have high shear stress, and then also the reduction of the plaques and the thickness of the wall, the arterial walls. I want to show the results. So they say patients carotid. I'm here in the middle. Let me highlight this. I'm starting there. So patients' carotid intima media thickness was compared between the pomegranate juice groups and the control group. So while the thickness increased by 10% in the control group, in the pomegranate group, it was reduced by 35% over a period of 1 year. Now, I was quite surprised by this, because I would have thought people would make a lot of noise about this, because heart disease is a very important thing. So if PNAS made a mistake or something, please mention that if there's counter articles. But for me, this is a very important result for something that is freely available. And then analysis of the mean CIMT of the left and right common carotid arteries before and during pomegranate juice consumption over the year revealed a reduction of 13% at 3 months, 22% at 6 months, 26% at 9 months, and 35% at 12 months. So I think that is the loss of the plaques, the normal profile of the enzymes that contribute to the normalization of the environment, the eNOS, and then also the reduction of the thickness of the arterial wall is for me very significant from pomegranate juice. And then I saw suggestions that we combine pomegranate juice with dates for a nice profile for the antioxidants.
Well, let me ask a basic question about this.
Yeah.
You have a situation where underneath the endothelium there has been, what are the foam cells and whatnot. That's the problem we're talking about here, right?
Yes. But they are affected
How
by
in God's
the
name do polyphenols affect that?
They affect the foam cells. The polyphenols actually affect the foam cells.
Oh, they do?
Yes.
Okay.
They reduce.
Well, I'm thinking to develop some pomegranate wine myself, but yeah, that's another thing.
But this idea that the shear stress on the places in the arteries is the cause of all this has been around for a long time. So this is nothing new, and this was part of the reason why blood pressure is bad and so on. High blood pressure is bad, all those things, because it gives more shear stress and so on. And these papers around that pomegranate alleviates this stuff. Pomegranate has been around a long time too. That's why I started taking it at least 20 years ago. And it's been very well documented all this. I must commend them in Life Extension magazine. So this paper that you're highlighting here is really a sort of a put together of a lot of things that were already known and some good experimentation to show them in more complete and solid detail.
Can I add a caveat to that? I think there have been a lot of studies that show that polyphenol antioxidants don't act the same for different populations. And the reason is that we all have different saliva bacteria and we all have different gut bacteria which compete for those polyphenols along with your own body. So depending on what your flora population is, it'll work for some people and it won't for others. And we just don't know enough about it.
Well, why not take those probiotics to redirect your flora in the desirable direction?
Well, I agree, but I don't think, I haven't seen enough studies that will support that.
Well, I agree with Walter there, but yes, I think you have to do all these things, the probiotics to get your flora and fauna in the right direction as much as possible, and you can't go wrong even if it doesn't, even if these polyphenols don't affect you in the same way as some other because of your probiotics. They're not going to hurt you, I don't think. So take them all. Take everything possible that is. Take everything possible that is both fixed people that a little bit that were going in the wrong direction, solve their problems a bit, or prevented or seems to have prevented them. Take all of these, anything that'll prevent aging dysfunction, and that's what I'm doing.
Well, Paul, you mentioned LEF. It's notable that, I mean, obviously pomegranate juice is not exactly sugar-free. And not that that's the biggest deal in the world, but it turns out that through LEF, you can easily get pomegranate extract, which presumably has these polyphenols highly concentrated without the sugar. Not nearly as delicious, but and a lot more expensive, but what?
There is an extract called urolithin A that's supposed to be a pomegranate juice extract.
My problem with that is I don't like taking extracts, just one chemical out of a whole bunch. It's like taking one curcuminoid out of a whole bunch of things that are in turmeric. When what's been shown to do all the benefit is turmeric with all its different chemicals within it. So I tried to do both. I try to eat a lot of turmeric, for instance, to use as an example. I try to eat a lot of turmeric. As well as take all the curcuminoids I can get supplements on, okay? And the same with respect to pomegranate, then that would mean, yes, taking supplements of your specialized chemicals, but also eating a full pomegranate juice as well. And a bit of sugar in it, well, yes, sugar is a natural thing in these things. And the juicing, that's an example really of the fact that juicing is actually not good for most people because it gives you the sugar in a very free form that really goes into you quickly. So you're always better, actually, I would be better if I could crunch up all of the pomegranate, including the seeds and I do put pomegranate seeds into my smoothies sometimes. I used to, but I don't think I've ever put pomegranate pulp into my smoothies, but that would actually be best for you if you ground it all up in a mix of something else. That's not. Then at least you've got all the bits and pieces, all the fiber and everything in there to stop the fast influx of the sugar and the resultant glycation, quick glycation that you can do.
It seems like a curious fact that most things that are super nutritional taste terrible, and so you can't help but wonder if when you eat a pomegranate, the skin of the pomegranate has got a puckery kind of a effect when you eat it. I wonder if that actually is nutritious in itself.
It's hormetics. Those things are a little bit toxic, and they're there to keep the bugs away from the fruit and so on. But the toxicity is in small amounts, in reasonably small amounts, is good for a human being. It's part of hormetics. If you ate a lot of the stuff, it would probably kill you. But if you eat the right amount, it makes you better.
Well, Walt and everyone, that reminds us, and we should branch a little further into the importance of the microbiome and how it facilitates so many things in the body. I'll just say that, related to things tasting, I don't know, I think not so great and awfully tangy, various probiotic or fermented foods, kimchi, kombucha, sauerkraut, and then other foods. I love the taste of anchovies, but they're, for at least according to my microbiome analysis, they're good for me. And then other things that are kind of bland, radicchio and things like that. But I just, as a bit of history, I went through using the uBiome microbiome test for a while, and that was interesting and partially useful. Then they're out of business, and I shifted to Viome. They give you a readout of foods, probiotic foods, and this is supposed to be tailored to you. I'd be interested in comparing that with someone, my readout with someone else's and a few other people, and seeing how they compare. But so it's a list of various kinds of foods, which I suppose I could show on the screen if you want. But these foods are the usual suspects. And then recently I've added more kinds of fermented foods. Now that I hear from different sources that Viome isn't really that reliable. And I did a follow-up after implementing, I was not true to form in everything they said. Like, I did not completely eliminate the foods that they said were not good for the microbiome, but I definitely, every morning for breakfast, I eat a smorgasbord of just a couple of bites of the foods that the Viome report said were good for my microbiome that I need some of. Plus, I added some fermented foods as well. But that leads us to a company that I met at the A4M exhibitor floor a couple of years ago, back when they were, well, the upcoming one is going to be in person, but this, I think, was in 1999, maybe 1999, no, 2019. I'm a little bit of a decade off there. Yeah, I think it was 2019, Biome FX. And I'm going to put a link in the chat. And this is how you can get a conference call with their representative, Jeff Gagnon or Jeff Gagnon. I don't know how his name is pronounced. And when I talked with their vice president of something at the A4M exhibitor, presentation, it seemed to have, to have a resonance of truth with it, and credibility. And I like that he told me, well, don't have our test right now. We're coming out with a new one that'll be greatly improved in February. And I appreciated that. So everyone, for your consideration, there's how you can, either look it up on the Biome FX website or book a conference with Jeff. And we should regenerate, resurrect, resuscitate our microbiome special interest group to pursue this more, because the microbiome is critical. Just in closing, I'll say that, I eat, I wouldn't be a candidate for eating a lot of, microbiome probiotic foods all day long, because there are other things in my nutritional program. And, as you start to stack all these therapies up, they, one may get in the way of the other. But I'll just suggest that the concept of simply seeding the microbiome, and I'd like to open this up for discussion, seeding the microbiome, because it's a little battleground down there. they're constantly fighting for control. It's kind of like humanity. So I'll turn the floor over to everyone else, and I'm going to show my probiotic foods. And I guess someone else is talking. Sorry, we can't both talk at the same time. But I'm done. Go ahead.
What is it? Bio. It kind of comes down to eat shit and live, huh? Instead of eat shit and die. Oh,
well, I'm thinking that from what I know, it's an implant going in the other direction. But I mean, I like anchovies and salmon and sauerkraut and some of the other stuff.
I think
This
Robert
is the
wanted to say
probiotics
something.
I use. It's a lactobacillus. It's called BioK Plus.
All right.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I was gonna say, basically, as Johnny was saying, do you have to raise your hand first? But I was gonna say that your microbiome gets used to certain foods, and if you eat something that you're totally not used to, your body can sometimes have a negative reaction to that. So I think that if you want to introduce, something foreign, you have to basically acclimate your body to it, kind of like a concept of vaccination, get a reduced dosage before you try something that's, completely different than what you're used to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the kimchi leaves me with an upset stomach.
Right. And that might be a case for somebody that is in Korea, that typically eats this all the time. Their microbiome may be, used to it, and they may not get upset. Whereas if you're not used to eating that and you suddenly eat it, you could, have a negative reaction. So I think we have to, try to start off with smaller doses if you're going to try something that's completely different than what you're used to trying.
Johnny, most kimchi has a high pepper content, the red stuff, the red pepper. And that can certainly upset people who aren't used to it. I've had to get more used to, since I've been eating Mexican food after getting to know Kitty and marrying her. I now have a much better tolerance for the red pepper, and I like the kimchi with that's red pepper. I'm at least up to medium dose rather than low dose of the stuff.
Oh,
same
very
with
good.
salt, same with salsa, and that red pepper is actually very good for you if you don't have too much.
Johnny, I take about 300 and some supplements a week, and what I do is, and I'm not a big guy at all, so what I have to do many times is to back off, do it again, back off, do it again, and my microbiome and various other parts of me become more used to it, and that's one way I do something that acclimates it, just on off for a while.
Let me know your thoughts.
Well, okay. I guess this is pretty well played out. Just if anyone who wants to, regenerate the microbiome special interest group, now that we have some more tools and more information, please let me know. So Miles, I'll turn.
Johnny, can I add one more point?
Yeah,
Sorry
please.
to interrupt.
Yeah.
If you've been on antibiotics, like I just recently was for a urinary tract infection, it's really important to get back on probiotics to fix things up in with your flora.
Oh, great, thanks. And let's see, I see you're on Walt's iPad, and I could you refresh me as to your name?
Oh, it's Walter Dursko. We've been in touch in the past.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Good.
I would add a comment to that if you're taking antibiotics, you ought to be taking prebiotics and probiotics at the same time, because you don't want, what's going to happen is the antibiotics are going to kill them, but you don't want the bad varieties to come in, and that opportunity is opened up by the antibiotics. So I would suggest, as a matter of just logic, that people take the prebiotics and probiotics along with the antibiotics with no pause between them. the fact that the antibiotics will destroy their efficacy during the antibiotic course, well, that's just that's the price you pay. But you want to keep the bad ones out, and you do not want to give the bad ones even a minute head start on the good ones.
Yep.
The problem in Canada is the doctors and hospitals typically don't prescribe probiotics or prebiotics when you're getting intravenous IV of antibiotics. I had to specifically request it and pull teeth to get it. So you're not always going to get it if you want it.
Yeah, but the point is there's no logic against it. It's just out of their schema.
And also they routinely overprescribe antibiotics. I would say radically so.
Yeah.
My point is simply, you don't want the bad strain to get a head start on the good strains.
Yep.
Good point.
Okay, I think
that's all I had to say.
Thank you. I thank you very much. Thanks, Paul. I mean, I thought I was alone with this pomegranate juice. I'm happy to hear that you've been taking it. I was not aware of this, and I was able to walk down to my local supermarket and buy a bottle, 750 milliliters of cold pressed pomegranate juice for about the equivalent of $4, which I feel that's going to be my mainstay. I'm definitely, I feel it's quite a sharp taste compared to, say, even apple. I had some, I don't want to, I'll call it anecdotal evidence. I felt a certain tingling in some of the old, I would call it almost like wounds that I've had in the past. I felt a certain reaction in certain areas of the body after a few days. So I think it's quite a acidic taste. I suspect it has a sort of an acidic effect, but I'm very happy. I thought, like I said, I thought I wasn't sure if it's a very important article, but I'm now happy to see that it is. Thanks for that. Thanks very much. Johnny, the next point is the nucleate. I've been talking to them a little bit, but not very much, just basically getting the next meeting up. I don't know what your experience was, because in my case, they needed to tell me or to authorize a whole new chapter. But maybe you could just explain what nucleate is, Johnny, and what happened.
Oh, well, Miles set me up with a meeting with one of the driving members of that initiative. And I found him very fast paced, very quick. I had to bring my A game and really speed up my speaking to match his comprehension level. So I was successful in that. But having said that, yeah, the quickness of mind, is an important thing. But it seemed an initiative that is useful. And gosh, I apologize, Miles. I remember some of the high points, but I don't remember a lot of the details. And usually, if I don't feel that something is really in the critical path to solving biological aging, I have some notes around it somewhere. I would have brushed up on them had I been known, had I known you were going to ask me to kind of recap, but it didn't seem like it was directly right now in the critical path to solving aging, but could be a useful partnership to work with this group. That's all I got, Miles. Sorry.
Okay, can I just give them more background? They are in the Church's lab at Harvard. So we had a meeting with a gentleman who's doing a PhD at Harvard, and the nucleate program is they help PhD and master students to start companies in biotech. So, but it doesn't have to be for profit. It can also be non-profit projects, and that is why I was thinking maybe it could be utilized if we have enough money, because there is a money situation involved. Basically, they link you up, the PhD students and postgraduate students at Harvard. They link you up with various companies in Boston, which is part of the biotech sort of ecology. And the company that I noticed there, which I thought that I've mentioned this before, the company which I think is very important, and that's why I brought it up, is Ginkgo Bioworks. Because Ginkgo, they would be able to take your project, you've got an idea, you've done some research, they have a massive, very modern laboratory, and then they can optimize your, for example, if it's a gene therapy, and I think this group is eventually going to get involved in gene therapy. I can't see how we can avoid it. So we could do a basic design, Johnny, the group can do a basic design and send it to Ginkgo for optimization. And this is part of the work that Nucleate does. So I like the Nucleate program because it gives you a process for putting your research ideas into practice. They even have mice and rats, and primates they can test things on. So they're going to optimize your gene for you, your gene therapy. You may be proposing a adeno-associated virus or a lipid platform, or you're thinking of using E. coli, the Nissel E. coli, which is used for doing medicine production in the gut. They can optimize your design and then actually help you to bring it to clinical trials and so forth. So I just saw, because George Church is so influential and he has so many links linked to him. I saw in the Nucleate program, which he is backing, it's a mirror effect of the whole ecosystem in Boston. Yeah, so that's, and I think that's, like I said, it doesn't have to be for profit, Johnny. It can be non-profit as well. So GRG can also do development of gene therapy. Of course, we just have to be able to pay Ginkgo, and that was the spirit. They're only starting. We haven't finished November. November was just the introduction. December is actually the next part of it, when they will intensify and start to introduce the companies to us. So I will be watching that. I have sent a message and asked for a meeting next week in December, and I'll obviously update you all the way. But I just felt that even for nonprofits, this program is interesting.
The proper method.
Any comments? I think everybody's familiar with George Church, right?
Yes.
So I think, Johnny, I mean, you said you had some gene therapies in mind. I think we should look at mentioning it to them, asking if it's possible to do something. And you've got funding. You have venture capital also in your group, in your circle. So I think we need to investigate that. Yes.
Different issue.
Well, good. I have a separate file. Please, well, after this meeting, send me an email. Well, or I can dig for it, but would you please send me an email of the fellow's name? I felt he was a mover and a shaker, and if anyone could pull this off, he would. So, but I have a special file now that you mentioned what you just said, that I would like to place the information front and center.
Well, he's a PhD student at Harvard. I mean, they are normally quite intense.
Yeah.
And so is George Church. He's extremely intense. He's got so many things going at the same time. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And anybody else familiar with the program or the process of doing something, even if it's not for profit, a project for a non-profit project?
What are you asking, Miles?
I'm saying, is anybody else interested? Like, for example, for anti-aging, we've got parabiosis, which the convoys have done. That's a project which we'll have to go through. We'll have to start testing it on ourselves eventually. We have to start a program with parabiosis by actually doing it ourselves. And the same thing with the gene therapy for anti-aging. We're going to, GRG, I think, in the future, will be doing some projects with gene therapy, because you can't get everything done with parabiosis. Parabiosis only sort of sets the table. There'll be lots of genes or epigenes that still go wrong, even if you've got the right combination in your blood. So we have to do projects eventually. And the way the Nucleate program at Harvard University, it's a program to help you do projects for profit in biotech, for profit and for non-profit, which is why we attended a meeting with them, and we've registered to take part in the program to see if they can help us, even though we are non-profit.
How do you spell that?
Let me give you the link in the chat.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
Parabiosis, by the way, is obsolete.
why do you say that?
Now it's plasma. I mean, parabiosis is obsolete. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, yeah. So there's the program, Nucleate. It's at Harvard University. It's in George Church's lab, but they've expanded to lots of other universities, including in California, where Johnny's living. So they've asked Johnny for funding and for access to his circle. These are PhD and master students in biotech, chemical engineering and microbiology and so forth, biotech. I see Gunther, you're asking, yes, let me, Gunther, have a look at the link. I've asked for a meeting, and if they come back, then I'll include you. I'll try to include you in the meeting with them.
Okay, and what was his name again, Miles?
Oh, Dodd, Oliver Dodd. Oliver Dodd. Let me type it in. Oliver Dodd. He's a PhD student at Harvard in biomedical, I think it's, well, some aspect of biotech. I can't remember which one.
Great. Yeah, when their program is up and running and they have some projects, I'd like to know more about them and present them to some folks in my circle of associates, angel investors. They generally are interested in first round, I guess you'd call it, startup therapies. I'll put the criteria on the screen in a moment here.
I can just mention quickly while you're busy, Johnny. One of the problems now is there's so much money in biotech that the companies that are being listed on the stock market are very, very high. The shares are extremely high. Ginkgo was listed and it's sitting with a valuation of $17 billion, which is unbelievable for a company that just started. But the point is that there's a nice ecosystem for projects. There's lots of help for projects. And sometimes you don't even have to do the projects yourself. There's companies that will optimize your project for you if you can find the funding.
That's always useful. And I would like to add a list of those companies to my list of affiliates. Just here is the investment criteria for our angel group. You can read this for yourself, but the product or service with potential breakthroughs to get great many more years of healthy living, 15 years to open-ended, and where those of us involved would get early benefit. And it has to be interesting to us, but we're certainly interested in anything that'll do this. So that's a given. It helps if we like the people involved and feel they are credible. It's probably okay if it's approved for a specific disease, but could be used off-label for aging. And there is an art to dealing with that as far as the FDA is concerned. Or I shouldn't say an art, but there are some guidelines. And it takes any potential, I'd prefer to call us a partner, because we bring, we would bring more than money. We would bring expertise and, some ideas and guidance to it. But, that takes some time. We would need a scientist who understands it to evaluate and, review the books and records and, hire specialized experts and others to evaluate. So there's anyone here who hears of such a project that, this goes for me personally. I have people coming all the time with things that, may or may not, get us some healthy time, some, nutraceutical or something, but anything that'll get us open-ended lifespan, that would put you on the critical path or the person you're introducing. So please keep that in mind. Miles?
Yes, Johnny, they also obviously linked with venture capitalists, the students. So it's whole, like I said, it's a whole ecosystem. projects. So I think I've actually contacted Ginkgo to start to see how do you start this process? What do they need in terms of money? How much does it cost? And how does this pipeline for projects work? So when I get the results back, I'll tell the group, and I see Gunther's asked me, so I'll include Gunther. Gunther, I just need an email address from you. If you can just please put that in the chat so I can add you to my contacts, and anybody else who wants to. But first, have a look at the webpage, see what they're doing. I think we have to start interacting with the researchers and the venture capitalists in this field. I think we've got lots in the group. There's an enormous amount that GRG can offer.
Well, I think we're wrapping up a little bit here. Is that true? Anyway, I wanted to actually, Johnny and I are in an organization together, the American Longevity Alliance, and we are we're putting together a conference at the beginning of May, looks like it's going to be in St. Louis, that is totally aimed at age reversal. No, far out experiments that won't ever hit the street or, for decades. And anything anybody here can do to help me get this together. I'm not making any money on this. It's all charity, really. The ALA is trying to put together this conference and you can see the title of it is The Plasticity of Biological Aging. And it's all about age reversal and also things like limb regrowth and related technologies, mostly to do with gene expression, really genetic expression. So if anybody wants to participate in any way, helping me organize it, helping me get sponsors, or speaking, anybody have something important to say, we need all of the above. Thank you.
Can I ask, Walt, is it online? Is there an online component?
Well, Walt, as I understand it, will be both in person as well as online. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
There is no link yet. I will put, everybody here belongs to the GRG. I've been working on the agenda and so on. I have some really great speakers, Vince Giuliano, Harold Katcher, Aubrey de Grey, Greg Fahey, and several others, in fact, including Liz Parrish. Various levels of commitment, but they all said they speak. But then when, I haven't exactly they're not signing on the bottom line exactly, but they've all told me they would. So it's a great lineup. I'm working on George Church and so on, but I don't know. Who knows where that's going to go. So yeah, it's going to be live and online. And I'm hoping to keep the cost down, especially if I can get some good sponsors. I've actually written 2 letters to Jeff Bezos. Okay, that's wishing on a star, but hey, if it doesn't happen, it won't be because I didn't ask.
Walter, add your email on the chat. You don't have a link, but you can put your email.
I did have a link. If you look at the last thing I put in, walticular@gmail.com, that's my email address.
Walt, Jeff Bezos has got a company called Altos, which is dedicated to aging. Altos. I think you know.
Yeah, Altos. I know. I'm very aware of them. In fact, I'm. Who's that? That's working there? Belmonte. He's a giant. He's a giant of the community, working out of the Salk Labs until now. I saw him speak once, and he was by far the best. He had the best message of anybody in the whole conference that I think Johnny was there too, at one of the BAAM conferences at Stanford. But he was great, and I've been trying to get a hold of him and get him to speak.
Oh,
I think, Johnny,
Rodolfo Goya.
Yeah,
Well,
the guy from Spain.
Rodolfo, well, I think Argentina.
Argentina, you're
But
right.
he's a superstar. Actually, I will be communicating with him later this week or next week. So I'll
He
do
just
that.
finished some experiments using, was it neutral age plasma or something like that, which showed no positive results, surprisingly. Isn't that right, Akshay? Akshay can correct me on that.
Yeah, he used young plasma and there was health benefits. So the treated group remained healthy, much more healthy than the untreated group till their death, but the lifespan was almost the same. There was a slight increase, but it was very slight for the treated.
Well,
That's
earlier,
still good because
someone,
they must
Go
have felt
ahead.
better. It's still good because they must have felt better. So they had higher quality of life up to the time of termination. That's a
Yes.
good thing.
No, absolutely. The data was very interesting. Johnny could share the Goya's paper.
I don't have it at my fingertips, so if anyone can find it, we'd put it on screen share. I did want to say earlier, someone had mentioned the importance of parabiosis, but and the convoys, what's being done today that a couple of three of my close associates have had done, four actually, the variation of it, is the convoys are partnering with a physician who is an expert in apheresis. It's technically a clinical study, but the patients pay $6,000 per treatment, and they have to go to San Francisco to have it done. And there's a sequence of 6 of them. His name's Dobry Kiprov, and apheresis is the process by which there's an apheresis machine, and tubes are placed in each arm. The blood is drawn from one, and there are different kinds of apheresis procedures, but in this one, the plasma is drained. Each treatment, 2.5 liters is drained. It's replaced with the equivalent amount of saline plus albumin. It happens to be by default younger albumin because the typical plasma donors are in I believe in the 20 to 25 year age range, something like that. Plus at the end, an IG push. But there's a interesting variation of that where part of it, rather than saline or rather than albumin, is being replaced with umbilical cord plasma. And that's the good stuff. All this talk about 20, 25-year-old plasma and, no data really that I can find to support the effectiveness of certain clinical trials so-called clinical trials that have taken place. But I have seen the biomarker data of one subject having that protocol, and it is very, very good. And regardless of what you feel about the Ginfinity Aging SOS panel and the wellness index number, this individual had a number of 100, which is as high as it can be after these treatments. So I'll leave you with that as being the state of the art, 2021 parabiosis. So we'll see what the future will bring. I predict a personalized protein cocktail administered ideally in this process where the bad pro-aging components in plasma are being drained away and replaced with a precisely designed, personalized protein cocktail designed for each individual. And we mentioned Clotho earlier. Yeah, that's getting a lot of attention these days. Quick sidebar, Steve Perry is using that now, in addition to GDF11, but back to topic. To do that, we need to know what the proteins in a person's blood are, so that we can know what's low, what might be too high, and remediate. To accomplish that, it was the topic of our last meeting, the protein analysis system, which I developed, the protein clock, and the YouTube video of that is still up on our YouTube channel. And also I made a presentation to the Aging Analytics Agency's biomarker conference. That's online as well. So just bringing us up Parabiosis 2021. Who else has something, and this is complementary to Akshay and Harold's E5 protein fraction and the things that other scientists are either working or doing today. So who else knows about this?
Well, I have, I think, an important factor in this, which is that, and I actually got the first whiff of this from Michael Comboy himself in a conversation we had. This plasma exchange, the effects of it are highly transient. And the reason is because it does not alter the epigenetic state such that you may temporarily give a youthful nature to your plasma, but it is quickly replaced because, well, those of us who believe that aging is primarily programmed, your body continues to be deficient in the youthifying proteins and pumping out the C-reactive proteins and whatever. So you end up reverting to an aged state relatively quickly with this type of treatment. That's really important. Did I get that right? Anybody can contradict me on that?
Yeah, well, right. I mean, I'm hoping, optimist that I am, that it is in fact remodeling something similar to, and I'm hoping the same thing for the umbilical cord plasma infusions that I occasionally have, and also some peptides and stem cells that are derived from those from umbilical cord plasma that I have out in the -80 fridge. I'm hoping that it's optimist that I am remodeling something, but yeah, thank you, Walt. We want a one and done solution. So how are we going to make that happen?
I might just say something in support of what Walt says with respect to other things that are being done, such as myself, who takes every kind of supplement I can think of that has had negative effects on aging parameters and so on diseases and so on, or positive effects, sorry, negative effects on you having them. Anyway, if I was to stop all my supplements, I have a good, I seem to be very healthy right now and keep maintaining my health very well. And all my measures are pretty good and so on, my aging SOS. And I'm hoping actually my aim right now is to get to 100. I was surprised to see they have had a person with 100. So that I didn't know that. I wonder how old the person was, but anyway.
67.
67.
And that's a wellness index score.
Oh, yes, right. Yes, right. I'm trying to get 100 wellness index at 83. So there.
All right. Anyway,
I'm up. I mean, I'm up to 90. I think I am now, but so I'm getting close. Anyway, my point was that I support Walt's idea that I think if I stopped all of those things, because my epigenetics is still pumping out all the wrong things and so on, that I would soon revert to being not that healthy. I mean, I wouldn't immediately get the diseases of aging. That would take some time. But I would have less energy and so on and so forth, and be going toward getting those diseases then. So yes, I haven't stopped my general negative aging factors of my epigenetics, and that's why I'm looking for these other things too. They are certainly the long range thing, but in the meantime, I'm trying to keep myself healthy as long as possible so I can get them.
Yeah, well, Paul, 90, that's impressive. He, 3 or 4 of the top tests I recall are the senescence-associated beta-galactosidase, very important, the NAD, and then 2 measures of, I think it's of oxidative stress or something along those lines. I'd be interested. I'll put it this way, I'll send you my reports, and if you'd send me yours, or just tell me, what
I posted
ones, he has things that he subtracts from 100. I'd be interested in knowing, given your vitamin regimen and supplement regimen, which of those were subtracted.
I guess you didn't read my last posting those results to GRG, because I do post them all to GRG every time I get them.
I read
and I've got a table.
every word of every message within. No, I apologize. I don't
Right. Yes. I
thoroughly
understand.
read everything.
Right.
Can I add
have
something
your-
to Paul's note?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been in touch in the past with the Institute of Gerontology in Kiev, which has quite a good international reputation. They were the group of scientists that was doing the follow-up research. If you recall, the University of Paris did the longevity work on carbon-60 in olive oil, and they wanted to replicate that study with mice. And they started comparing carbon-60 in olive oil with other different life extension products like metformin and other things. Their study was never published, but they found that the cocktail of different combinations of life extending products actually lowered the longevity of mice rather than increasing it. So that's just a curious note that I happen to note. That study was never published, but if you, and I guess the reason was because the people that funded it didn't want to see those results. But I'm sure if you get in touch with them, they could probably explain that to you.
My thought is they were probably overdosing, but because there have been studies. I think there was a nice one at McMaster University in Hamilton, Canada, which showed that a cocktail of supplements and so on did help with life extension and health and life extension of dogs.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm just bringing that up as a curious point.
Well, allow me to add something.
I'm very cautious on dosages. So I do make sure that I don't overdose things. I really look carefully in the literature for where the curve would be in dosages and so on, and I don't go too high, especially since I'm taking a lot of different things.
As my chemistry professor said, the dose makes the poison, right?
Absolutely.
And there's a corollary to that, and that is that you need to run a dose effect curve, and you start at the bottom,
right?
Because that's where it's not toxic. You don't start at the top because that'll kill your research immediately.
Yep.
Right on. And the dose response curve, since a lot of these supplements are interrelated and have some crossover effects to each other, and even maybe taking one will negate another or whatever, you need to be careful with dosages there and aim, because there is some sort of the dosage response curve for the whole conglomeration will be quite different than maybe for any one. So it's a very messy situation. We need some computer analysis and a lot of experimentation to get it right. That's where the individualism comes in. Each person is an individual too.
Yeah. Enter the data beta project of Josh Middledorf, which is exactly what he's doing.
Absolutely.
Johnny, I think we're definitely done with nucleate. Are we in general now?
I'm sorry, are we what?
We on general point, no? Number the end of the agenda. We on general now.
Right. Anything else? I think one of our members, well, we're going to turn off the recording and maybe leave us freer to say some things that will not be posted in public on the internet.
Turned off the broadcast.
Turn off the broadcast. Well,
Johnny, can you hear me? It's Paul Presti. Do you hear me?
Hey, Paul. Yeah. Hi. What do you have to say?
I say great meeting. It's my first, to be here, and really a pleasure listening to everybody. And there were a couple things. I think you asked, Johnny, what is the answer to these problem proteins? What do we do? What's the answer? Was that right? You asked. Was that your comment?
Well, words to that effect. It was in the context of first analyzing and creating a personalized protein cocktail. I think, relatively easier it would be to figure out which ones we need and take them. And I say relatively because more difficult would be if there's some protein that we're getting too much of, how to extract that from the system or tamp it down in some way.